Space, the final frontier. No, wait a second. That's the wrong show. Welcome back to Mr. News Art Class. It's wonderful to see your smiling faces today. Today, we're talking about the element of space. This is the last of our Elements of Art series, and it's kind of the hardest to actually create on your paper. Now, there's lots of different types of space. The easy ones, let's get them out of the way real quick. The easy ones, there's vertical space, up and down. So for example, you could have something at the bottom of your page and something at the top of your page, and you have a vertical space. You have a space between them. What's above, what's below, okay? Easy peasy. You have horizontal space. That's when you have something on one side, like a wiggly weird shape, and something on the other side, like a bajankety stair-steppy shape. And there's a space between them, a horizontal space. What's on the left and what's on the right. But then, and before I move on, I should also talk about positive and negative space. And I'll just, boom, magic of editing here, show you a picture that definitely takes advantage of positive space and negative space. The positive space being the object you're focusing on, and the negative space being what's around it. But three-dimensional space, that's when you have distance close and away from the viewer. That's the person looking at your artwork. That can be really hard to do. So let me switch out for a new piece of paper here, and let me show you how to create that illusion of depth. Now here I have a flat sheet of paper. Creating a three-dimensional depth that comes out of or pushes into this paper is tricky, but it can be done. And it all has to do with an understanding of what's called perspective. I've talked about this briefly in other videos before, links in the description, but I just want to start here by talking about the horizon. The horizon we see as a horizontal, guess what? The root word of horizontal is horizon. So horizontal means like the horizon. Oh, mind blown. Okay, so a horizontal line. The horizon is a horizontal line that we see that separates the sky, everything above the horizon, from the ground, everything below the horizon. Why does it do that? Let's talk about planet Earth. Let's pretend this, because Earth is round, right? I know there are some people out there on YouTube who are trying to convince you that it's flat. They're wrong. Don't listen to them. They're idiots. But let's pretend there's a person like standing on the North Pole, like, Santa Claus. That's obviously not to scale, but bear with me. Then let's say there's another person standing here in Australia. Can those two people see each other? Obviously, that's also not to scale. Can they see each other? Let's figure that out by drawing a straight line from eyeballs to eyeballs. If they were both looking at each other, there's something in the way. It's called Earth. There's a planet in the way. Even Superman would not be able to see through because, Superman can't see through lead, and there's lead in the crust of Earth. So even if these were Superman and Superwoman, they wouldn't be able to see each other because there's a planet in the way. No matter how good their eyesight is, you can't see through Earth. What if there's a person up here in Alaska? Can he see Santa Claus? Look, I just drew a line from their eyes to their eyes. Is there anything in the way? No, nothing but air and space, because their heads would be out past the space station if it's at this scale. But bear with me here. If they've got strong enough binoculars or telescopes, they would be able to see each other because nothing's in the way. Where is the horizon for any one of these people? We need to use a math word called a tangent. Yeah, I'm kind of going off on a tangent here about the horizon, aren't I? Well, a tangent in math is a line that intersects the circle at exactly 1 point. 1 point. This line intersects the circle at 2 points. 1, 2. So it is not tangent. No, not tangent. This line does. It does intersect exactly 1 time, so it is a tangent line. Why is that important? Because that point right there is not actually a point, it's actually a line. Because we got to think in 3 dimensions. The Earth is not a circle, it's a sphere, it's a ball. And so this line, where your line of vision, your field of vision, intersects with the Earth at a tangent, that's where the horizon is going to be. Guess what? If you're a taller person, then the horizon is farther away. See that? See how much farther away the horizon is? Because he's taller, he's looking from a higher vantage point. And if you lay down on the ground, let's see. If you lay down on the ground, the horizon is much closer because you're lower down. So, the horizon changes in distance based on how high or low you are, which is an important first step in understanding how to create the illusion of space around this horizon. I've drawn a horizon. I drew it lightly because I'm probably going to erase parts of it. Maybe there's going to be things that are taller than I am. Anything that is taller than my eyes is going to go above the horizon. Anything that's shorter than my eyes is going to be below the horizon. So for example, let's start with a tree. Simple tree. All right. Well, I'll just do lollipop trees as a basic quick example. Obviously, I know how to draw a better tree than that, but this gets us an example of something that's taller than I am. So the top of the tree would be above my eyes, so it's above the horizon. The bottom of the tree would be below my eyes, so it's down at the bottom of the page. Okay. Well, notice that it's all the way at the bottom. That means this tree is right in front of me. If it's a little farther away, then the bottom of the tree where it comes up out of the ground is gonna be closer to the horizon. Well, we can think of something called the rule of halves and doubles. I got that name from a guy named Mural Joe, links in the description. It's just an easy way to remember a simple idea, and that is the farther away something is, the smaller it gets. The way Mural Joe describes the rule of halves and doubles is if it's twice as far away, it's half as big. I think that's a good rule of thumb. I don't know if it really mathematically plays out, but it works really well visually in your artwork. So let's see it. If I want to draw the same tree twice as far away, well, it should be half the distance from here to the horizon. So the base of it should be about there. And it should be half as big. So the top of the tree would be there. So I'd draw this tree. There we go. It's farther away, and I'm gonna erase the horizon where it's behind there just because that bugs me. So this tree is twice as far away as this one, which is why it's half as big. That's the rule of halves and doubles, okay? Now, if I wanna make another tree, again, twice as far away, I need to take that distance from here to the horizon and make it half again. And then I also need to take the size of this tree and make it half again. So that's where the top of the tree is gonna be. Boom. And if I keep going with this, again, halfway from here to the horizon, and then the size of the tree is going to be half as big, and then again, and again, and again, and eventually it's just going to be a tiny dot. Notice that the very last one is just a tiny little dot on the horizon line. We call that a vanishing point. Not because that dot is going to disappear off my paper, but because when something gets so far away that it reaches the horizon, it's going to go over the horizon and it's going to vanish. It's going to be it's going to be behind Earth and you can't see it, so it vanishes, right? Let's do one more thing, just to emphasize that space. Let's create a road that goes off into the distance. And we'll use that same vanishing point, that same dot as a vanishing point. The part of the road that's right in front of me is gonna be wide. Maybe I'm gonna be standing in the middle of the road and it's gonna be really, really wide. But as it goes farther away, it's gonna come in and narrow itself. It's gonna end up looking like a triangle. So, using that vanishing point as the top of that triangle, right now it just looks like I drew a triangle on the ground. How can I make it look more like a road? I can draw the little lines down the middle of the road. Okay, well, let's think about those lines in the middle of the road. It's a dash line, dash, 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 dash. And those little dashes would be shaped like rectangles if you're looking straight down at them. But in perspective, as they move away from us, the side closer to us, the side of that rectangle closer to us would be a little wider. The side farther away from us would be a little narrower. So you would take that rectangle and shape it more like a trapezoid. So, I'm gonna just make a guide here down the middle, and I'm gonna make a trapezoidal shape, and then I'm gonna make a slightly smaller trapezoidal shape, and a slightly smaller trapezoidal shape. Trapezoidal, trapezoidal, I think it's trapezoidal. And these trapezoids just get a little smaller and a little smaller each time until eventually they disappear and they're just dots going off. Because they're so small you can't see them at that point. And so that now looks like a 2-lane road going off into the distance and with a row of trees beside it. Well, guess what? If I take from that vanishing point and draw a line across the tops of these trees, you see how they're all in a line? And if I use from that vanishing point a line down the bottom of those trees, you see how they're all in a line? I could do the same thing with light posts. I could do the same thing with houses. I could do the same thing with anything parallel to that street. Anything that follows the same direction as that street is going to use the same vanishing point. Now, I've got more videos about 3D space and how to create it. This is just a demonstration to understand what the word space means. In your artwork, there's lots of different ways to include space. So you can have vertical, you can have horizontal, you can have that third dimension, but understanding how those 3 dimensions get put together and how they work with positive and negative space is super important. So taking a look here, maybe I shouldn't have drawn in those perspective lines, but bear with me. These trees, each of those is part of the positive space. It's part of the actual object in focus. Then you get these weird shapes between the trees, right? So let's focus for a second on this little space right here that is created by these trees. That little shape right there, and then it opens up and goes out, but let's just stop it here. That little shape right there, if I just trace that here onto another piece of paper, that shape by itself is super fascinating. And one of the really advanced, I was gonna say difficult, but it's an advanced topic with space, with the element of space, is understanding how the positive spaces, the positive elements within your artwork interact with the negative ones. So this space right here that's created by all those other things around it, it's very fascinating, especially when considered next to the main parts of your picture, the positive spaces. One of the things that really good artists, really advanced artists do, master artists do, is they make sure to balance between the positive space and the negative space. Balance between what parts of the picture are in focus and what parts of the picture are background. A lot of people think about the negative space as being equivalent to the background. That's not quite true, because maybe if this was my picture and I had, I don't know, a person or a car or something on that road, that might be the focus of my picture. But the foreground is whatever's close to me. It's this tree. This tree is the foreground, and this tree is kind of in the foreground, and these trees are in the middle ground, and those trees are in the very background. Foreground, middle ground, background is more about what's close and what's far, which is an important part of space. But the negative space isn't the sky behind, it's that shape that is created by the outlines of the positive space objects. And manipulating those shapes has an impact on the positive space, and manipulating the positive space has an impact on the negative space. And so learning how to balance those out and manipulate them together is super important. I hope you've learned something today. I hope you'll follow through and see some of my other videos about how to create three-dimensional forms and spaces. I hope you'll consider looking at my whole playlist of videos about the elements of art, all the way from line to space. I think there's a lot to be learned there. If you want to learn anything else, any specific topics about art, shoot me a comment down below. Let me know. I'm glad to help you out. As always, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.